Welcome to Tech Talks. I'm Holly Scott. I'm here at 160 Studios with the CEO of Guider Surgical and friend of our firm, Sujit Dike. Welcome, Sujit.
Thank you, Holly. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. It's always great connecting, and I'm very much looking forward to diving into what makes your organization special. We've been watching it and had a recent big announcement with FDA clearance, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. We are super excited. It's a very big milestone for the company, and it's a pleasure to be in this position now that we have clearance in two major markets. The FDA clearance came in January. Prior to that, we already have received Australia's TGA approval, so we are now cleared and approved in two major markets.
Excellent, excellent progress. It's a lot of fun too to have watched the journey, knowing that you are in California, in the States, and you have the Australian entity, and you've been leading that from two parts of the world, and excited to dive further into that. And before we go there, though, I think it's great for the audience to hear, as we have so many individuals who are interested in the medtech space overall and aspire to careers in leadership roles like you have grown to become. So tell us a little bit about your journey, because you did start in science, correct?
That's right. I always had passion for technology and innovation, and I am an engineer by training. I moved to the United States after my undergrad in engineering, and I started my career in basic science. I was doing research, and I was part of the Human Genome Project, the Mouse Genome Project. I wrote some software code to assemble the genome sequences. And very interestingly, while that entire endeavor is very fascinating, right, intellectually stimulating, I felt I was quite far away from, bringing these concepts and technologies to real life applications. So that's what got me started into moving into industry. So I moved from research to a company called Affymetrix, which was a pioneer of large-scale gene sequencing, really the first company to commercialize gene sequencing. And while I was there, again, I had great experience, great learning. I realized that it takes a lot to bring a technology to market, to make it accessible to patients. That's when I decided to go to business school, learn a few other skill sets. And until then, frankly, I never had thought about medtech. I was not aware of medtech. I didn't realize the potential of medtech. It is by pure chance that I bumped into somebody, and I learned about this company called Synthes, which was a Swiss-German company, a market leader in orthopedic trauma. And I got fascinated by what they were doing, the culture, the people. Ultimately, you do want to work with people that you enjoy working with. That's an important criteria for me. So I joined Synthes, and in 3 years, the company got acquired by Johnson& Johnson for one of the largest acquisitions in medtech history. And I was very fortunate that after joining that company, I had a very, very unique role. It was chief of staff to the worldwide chair of the combined DePuy Synthes organization, so a $10 billion enterprise. And as a chief of staff, I had visibility to strategic planning, global integration, and a lot of other things. And I would highly encourage for those people who are early in their career, specifically, if they do get a chance for a role like that, it's a phenomenal learning experience. You get to work with top leaders, you get a global perspective very early on, and you get a very strong strategic perspective very early on in your career. After that, I moved more into commercial and leadership roles. I built and led teams that were responsible for account management, sales, and other aspects of commercialization, calling upon largest health systems, the GPOs, government, DoD, VA. So name any kind of customer possible in the US, for example. I had the privilege and honor of leading teams that call upon these customers. And again, the secret sauce here is having a great team. So I learned a lot from my team. I learned a lot in my career. And back in 2020, there was in any large organization, there are always these changes happening, organizational changes. And I thought that would be a good time for me to come back to the West Coast and go into the startup world. So I joined another startup in a very different space. And at that time, I was approached by one of the board members at Guided Surgical. They wanted to have a look. They wanted me to have a look at the technology, and I got super excited. And here I am.
Yeah, and I'm privileged to have been in on some of those conversations along your journey. And as someone who counsels individuals all day, I think one thing that I take away from you and your path is you've never been afraid to try something new. You've never been afraid to be bold and really show initiative in areas, even if you weren't 100% complete in exposure there or really knew 100% of what to expect, because you went in and created opportunities that may not have been evident before. And especially as you're drawn to innovation, individuals who are drawn to innovation, that's got to be in your DNA, and it's got to be in your activities as you grow within an organization, whether you're a scientist saying, you know, I'd like to try product management, or a product manager who says, I'd like to try sales, or an engineer who wants to try an ambitious role like chief of staff, which, by the way, is a huge opportunity to get business visibility and prep for the C-suite. So I really appreciate your insight there, because again, the audience looks to guests like you and thinks about their own career and how they can map forward.
Absolutely. And I credit a lot of this to my mentors and people I've worked with. You know, that risk-taking appetite, you know, it goes back to attraction to innovation, but having that ability to, and frankly, the appetite to manage through uncertainty, you know, that's the key. And I was very fortunate that I got opportunities even in large organizations like Johnson Johnson to build and build new capabilities that didn't exist within the organization. And I do believe that, you know, that's what ultimately leads to that entrepreneurial drive. And so people who are interested in medtech startups, smaller companies, you know, one has to assess, are they ready for that uncertainty, and do they truly have that risk appetite? And be honest with themselves. And it's okay if it's not the case, but, you know, be honest with themselves. And I think they would find themselves in a very good and happy situation.
That's right. Self-awareness. It starts with self-awareness.
Yeah.
And really acquiring that. So thanks for a little bit of the foundation there, because I think that's important. That sets us up for more discussion regarding Guided Surgical. I can remember when you shared with me that you were starting to consider this opportunity, and I'll let you explain the problem because you'll do so better than I. But I was really floored by the current results, the current lack of good outcomes associated with one of the more prominent and common surgical procedures, hip replacement. So as you're chatting about that problem in that clinical area that you're addressing, let's start with how prevalent this is. Tell us how Guider is serving this market.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story here. You know, one would be surprised, even in this day and age, the vast majority of orthopedic surgeons are not using any technology like guidance or navigation technology when they're performing surgeries like a total hip replacement. The vast majority globally are actually freehanding when they are placing the prosthesis into the hip socket, for example, and they're using, you know, either their own heuristic understanding of what the right angle is, or they may rely on some intraoperative imaging, take some shots after the fact. And that can lead to complications, as you can imagine. It's humanly impossible to get this kind of an angle right every single time, you know, perfectly position a prosthesis every single time. And it's a very complex surgery. And so what Guider is trying to do is to enable surgeons to perform every single surgery with the same level of accuracy and precision that, you know, patients expect and frankly deserve, no matter where they are. So that's the problem you're solving. And if you look at the overall market for hip surgery, globally, we estimate there are about 2 million hip surgeries performed and growing rapidly due to aging population. Just in the US alone, there are 700,000 hip surgeries performed annually. So it's a huge number of surgeries. And there's a lot of data that suggests that a large number of orthopedic surgeons may not be performing sufficient number of surgeries annually to have that level of proficiency, if you will, to have that level of consistency. And this is not surprising. It is a complex surgery. It's a very successful surgery, but it can lead to post-surgery complications when a surgeon gets this wrong. So we do believe there's a huge opportunity for a company like Guider and a technology like Guider Surgical to actually make a technology accessible to a large number of surgeons globally and make it so that it's easy to perform the surgery, not slow them down, make it easy for the patient also, and lead to better patient outcomes. We believe that this product, is well positioned to serve the needs of a large segment of the market that is not being currently served by existing technologies. So, for example, we've been able to train surgeons in 1 to 2 hours, the OR staff in 1 to 2 hours. So the training burden is low. The surgeon doesn't need to fly out to get trained, and that speaks to the ease of use. We have been able to do this in multiple markets now in public and private hospitals, and we found it's very easy to train on site, and they're up and running using the product the next day. So that speaks to the ease of use. We also believe that one of the biggest factors for what will drive adoption of this technology is the speed. So, for example, most competitive technologies add significant time to a standard procedure, to a standard hip procedure. In our case, we are barely taking a minute and a half to do the registration and to enable the implantation. This is very appealing for surgeons who are looking to be highly productive, want to do a large number of cases. So, for example, in outpatient centers, high volume surgeons, they are looking for technologies that doesn't slow them down. And this is where we fit in very nicely. We also have a very small footprint. A large component of the device is reusable, so it's very environmental friendly. All these factors combined really position the device well and the technology well to serve ASCs, which is one of the fastest growing segments of the hip market, community hospitals where, frankly, humongous systems and with a lot of capital financing requirements are a big barrier to adoption. We will not have that because we are not, our pricing model, for example, doesn't require financing, and make it easy and we have the ability to make it easy for customers to adopt this technology at relatively low costs.
There's so many great points that you made about the tech, and I think one of the things that's really resonated with me over the last number of years in the greater market, especially if you use the word imaging, navigation, intelligence, sometimes our mind swings to complicated. It does, because, well, let's face it, people still are struggling. How are we going to monetize data? How are we going to really use this intelligence? And clinicians don't want to learn another thing. They're already taxed. So what you're proposing here, what you're able to do with this is reduce cognitive load, improve outcomes, increase throughput, all in the same very simple, elegant, intelligent enough device to where you're getting the information that's going to give you better navigation capabilities, but not over-informing and putting so many bells and whistles that it's distracting or can become a problem on its own, which is sometimes the case. You and I both have history in robotics, so we know how that can be a real challenge for adoption. So that's truly exciting. And the move to ASC, look, if we're not playing in that market moving forward, we're not playing. So that's huge. That's a huge advantage, Sujit.
Absolutely. And we do believe, and that's the feedback we are getting from surgeons in the marketplace who have played with the device, you have seen the device, that, let's not make anything complex and more complicated than what is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe that, making it simple for the customer, for the surgeon, to use a product is one of the keys to adoption.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, for example, clinical accuracy is what the clinical benefit we are providing. I consider that table stakes.
Mm-hmm.
What drives adoption goes back to ease of use. Are we asking the surgeon to change their workflow? In our case, no. It seamlessly integrates into their existing workflow. Are we slowing them down? The answer is no in our case. And is it going to be cost effective? We do believe it will be cost effective and very competitive versus what the market is currently, how the market is structured right now.
Tell us more about what this product really is. So, especially for the engineers and the tech nerds like me in the audience who are not engineers but love to hear about it, tell us what exactly this is, what this looks like, how it fits into the workflow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Holly, let me paint the picture first on existing technologies and existing approach in the procedure, and then talk about how our product works. So, in general, when a surgeon does hip replacement, they are either freehanding, which means they are creating access, they're creating the surgical site, and impacting the prosthesis in using a standard handle. If they're using existing technologies, navigation or robotic technologies, it involves the use of metallic pins inserted into the pelvis. And depending on the technology, optical cameras or something else, um, the combination of pins, image-based, or these kind of technologies then is used to create a reference landmark, a reference, what we call registration technically. That process takes a long time, and it's complex and it's multi-step, and it can lead to potentially patient complications because of use of metallic pins. So patients may have localized infection, bursitis, or pain, for example. In our case, in Guider's case, the Guider hip system is actually pinless. So we have eliminated the use of pins completely. We have also gone imageless. So there is no requirement to use either preoperative imaging like CT imaging or intraoperative fluoro or X-rays. So it is the only device that is commercially available that is both pinless and imageless. And because of that approach, we have really shortened the registration time to barely a minute and a half on average. And so how does the technology work? Essentially, we are using a metallic brace that is positioned and can be sized and adjusted based on the patient anatomy using standard landmarks. And we have a handheld monitor that is attached to the brace. And the combination of these two essentially allow the surgeon to capture a reference plane. And that is the quickest part. All the surgeon has to do is press OK once the brace is placed, and we're done. Um, then the brace can be placed on the side. The navigation unit, the monitor, is then removed from the brace and attached to the standard handle, what we call in the industry impactor, that is used to impact the cup in. And that monitor then is providing real-time guidance to the surgeon on the angle of the handle versus their target angle for that patient, right? The target angle they want to implant the cup in. So it's giving them real-time information on if they want to adjust the target angle or if they want to adjust the handle and as they hammer it in. And we have plenty of clinical data now that suggests that the accuracy of the device is very much comparable to existing technologies. But while we are providing the same level of accuracy, we have eliminated a lot of barriers to adoption. We made it easy to use, we made it fast, we have reduced the footprint, and we have made it cost effective.
All with improving outcomes, which is what we all want in the med tech
Yeah.
industry. That's excellent. When the surgeon has a implant of preference, are you agnostic? Is the technology agnostic to the type of cup used?
Yeah, that's right, Holly. We want to give the surgeon the choice of what implant they want to use. We want to give them the flexibility. So our system, as it stands today, can has the ability to work with any cup implant based on the surgeon's choice.
Excellent. From an engineering perspective, now here you are on the other side of it, but were there some hurdles along the road from a technological perspective? When you think about that device, sometimes the toughest parts are in the simplicity. So I'm curious, were there any areas that were like, oh my goodness, I'm not sure how we're going to get past this, and how'd you get through it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have to really take this opportunity to give credit to a lot of people who have been working on this technology before I joined Guider. Starting with the initial concept started by a gentleman called Bob Lai in Australia. He's a former airline navigation engineer and moved into orthopedics. And when one of these surgeons was describing the nature of the problem and the importance of accurate cup placement, he immediately thought about using navigation technology that is used in airline industry for landing the plane, and thinking, oh, we should be landing this cup correctly at every single time and miniaturizing that technology. So that was the genesis. And then he partnered with an engineering services firm called Hydrex, and a gentleman called Bill Hill, who really led product development before I joined Guider about 2.5 years ago. And when I joined, I have to give Bill Hydrix and also a lot of credit to our existing team within Guider on progressing the product. But to your point, we definitely had some hurdles to cross. And one of the most interesting aspects of all of this is how do we incorporate the worst case scenarios and make sure that we have a product that works in those scenarios well. It does require a lot of a lot of creativity, a lot of brainstorming, and a lot of, I would say, uh, that problem-solving mindset, with the customer in mind. And that's the key, right? So for us, it was talking with surgeons. For us, it was looking at, and simulating, frankly, those scenarios. We had to incorporate some very novel, methods of tracking certain aspects that the FDA, for example, was looking for in our study, just because we are the only one that are pinless and imageless. And so all of those aspects, had to come together. But this is really a team effort. I have to say this, a lot of credit goes to the entire team. Certainly for me personally, it was quite challenging to manage and lead the R&D effort for the last 2 years, um, while sitting in the US and trying to drive that in Australia. But that really speaks to the caliber of the team within Guider and our partners.
Excellent, excellent. It sounds like you've worked together. I love hearing that excellent engineering comes to medtech from other industries, and aerospace in particular has been an incredible feeder for some innovation over the last 3 decades.
Yeah.
If we could have an entire discussion on that alone about how many great engineers came to medtech with that diverse thinking from other regulated and very important industries where precision is just pinnacle, and brought some real thought to the table. So thanks for that. That's exciting. So where are we today, and where do you see us in the next 12 to 24 months? What are you most excited about?
Yeah, so we are very excited about now the ability to bring this product to market, to surgeons and to patients in the United States. And so in the next 12 months, we are looking for doing a soft launch initially, really making sure that we are building that strong foundation of strong early adopters, and advocates for the product. And we would certainly be focusing on surgeons within the ASC space and community hospitals where we know that other competitive technologies have struggled because of all the factors that we talked about before. After 12 to 15 months, we envision really going big, and doing a formal launch within the US. In parallel, we are looking to also progress our next indication and from an R&D perspective and potentially submit in that 24-month timeline. As well as we do have the aspiration, and we're getting a lot of organic interest from markets like Japan and parts of Asia Pacific, because and as well as parts of Europe, to be very transparent, because when people see the videos of the product, they see the simplicity, the small footprint, everything becomes obvious. It's self-evident, if you will. And so we are getting a lot of interest from these markets that are looking to adopt these technologies but also are looking for something more simpler and cost effective than, more expensive alternatives. So we do have the aspiration to expand into other markets, more later in our cycle.
With that in mind, as I think about a tool like this and think about, of course, there's hip replacement going beyond that. Are there other clinical areas that you can comment on that you're thinking about right now in terms of a next indication?
Yeah, it's a great question. Our first indication that we have gotten clearance for is for the anterior approach in hip arthroplasty. For the general audience, just to explain, traditionally, almost all hip surgeries were done with what is called the posterior approach, and the surgeon is coming in from the back and creating access. In the last several years, an alternative approach called the anterior approach has really taken off. In the US now, it's more than, I think it's 55 to 60% of all procedures are anterior, and it's growing much, much faster than the posterior surgery. And the projections that I've seen that, it seems like it would be the dominant procedure by the end of this decade. And that's when the patient is lying on the back and the surgeon is coming from the front. And so our first indication is for this fast-growing anterior approach. But our second indication would be for the posterior. That's in the pipeline. We've already done some advanced prototyping and initial usability. So we would be looking to submit for clearance and approval in multiple markets, and then launch that. But to go back to your question, the technology itself, we do believe has the potential to go beyond hips into other orthopedic applications. We are not in a position to disclose the direction that we're taking those other applications, but certainly we do believe that that's a pathway we're going to take after we launch the posterior.
Yeah, I can't help but think of other applications where it may just make sense once you see the technology and once you see what they're doing and see the common areas and other potential applications just jump to mind. So that's exciting. That's very exciting. And is it true that there's like 35 million people that are dealing with hip osteoarthritis and this? Because I know as consumers and people who are all growing older, we want to maintain an active lifestyle. And we all know someone, or we will know someone, who suffers from this and who's going through challenges that could potentially be resolved. So I encourage those in the audience to think about organizations like this and stay atop of what's potentially out there. Sometimes it's a matter of mentioning it to your physician, asking the doctor if they know anything about your technology. Is that a trail that you've seen happening in Australia and the US?
Absolutely. More and more patients are aware of and hearing about different technologies. More and more patients are asking their surgeons about different technologies. Even the most prolific surgeons who have a great track record, and do high volume surgeries are seeing patients asking for those technologies and are looking for those solutions. And so certainly I do believe that, first of all, patient awareness, patient education is a very important element. Just for anybody who is entering that, let's say, age group and has a high risk of osteoarthritis, but also for family members and loved ones, for them to be aware that these are solutions that can give the peace of mind, if you will, to both the patient as well as to the surgeon. If they are using technology that provides a higher level of confidence in getting the right outcomes, it's the right thing to do. And certainly we are also seeing a greater trend, especially with younger surgeons, the next generation of surgeons. They're all, coming up on gaming technology and everything else, AR, VR, and all that stuff. So certainly their expectation is to utilize more and more technology. So I think overall we are moving in the right direction. I also believe, Holly, that as globally, and this is we have a more global perspective, not just U.S. perspective, but globally, as more and more patients age, and more surgeries demand for surgeries grow, and as economies grow, the incidence and prevalence of surgeries also increases. There is a greater need to ensure that every surgeon is performing at the same level. And I have the deepest respect for surgeons and the skill sets they have. But also, it's difficult humanly to perform at that level every single time. So, just making these technologies accessible to patients, no matter where they are, is a core philosophy for us.
Mhm.
And I hope for, I'm pretty sure that's what drives the medtech industry in and space in general. And so, certainly I'm very optimistic on both Guider as well as, all of the technologies that are solving these kind of problems.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And what I think is really just ultimately a winner with a technology like this is you're still giving the control to the clinician. The clinician has full control of this. It's like they have access to a calculator instead of an abacus in the OR, right? They have a tool that can give them immediate information, accuracy, and improve outcomes. And let's not forget about the increased or the better outcomes translates to huge cost savings. And with the state of healthcare and how unfortunately broke it is right now, this is a big factor.
You bring up a great point, Holly. Certainly, we believe that, surgeons need to have the choice. They are the ultimate decision makers. They are the best positioned to make the right decision for the patient, and we are an enabler to that and make sure we are supportive of that. But you also raise a very important point around the cost savings. Our estimates are that based on the market research we have seen, uh, the U.S. health system itself is spending about $2 billion in revision surgeries. So surgeries related to fixing issues because of either malposition cups or related issue, related problems in inaccurate positioning of the prosthesis. That's a huge cost to the health system, and more importantly, it's a huge cost to the family and to the patient because a typical patient who is undergoing hip surgery is probably in their 65 to 75 age group. So by the time they have a second surgery, they are older, their risk profile has gone up, their ability to withstand a major surgery, because of other complications potentially has reduced. So this becomes even a bigger challenge for the patient and their family. And so our goal is to help reduce that, right? Both from a cost from a society perspective and patient and family perspective, but also to the health system.
Excellent. Well, you're on your way. The progress is really remarkable. I'm thrilled for you. I'm thrilled for our discussion and for all the nuggets that you've shared with our audience today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us about the future or what's exciting to you from where you sit, Sujit?
Well, I have to say this is more to the audience involved in startups and interested in startups. I would say stay the course, and pivot if necessary, but stay the course in terms of seeing through stuff. We are very grateful to our investors and to our partners. As everybody knows, MedTech went through a major funding winter, if you will, the last couple of years, and we experienced the same thing. We had delays in our timelines around getting through FDA, but we were fortunate to have investors who believed in the product, who believed in the management team, and who understood that healthcare is not like your traditional consumer software kind of a process. There's risk, and we need to persist and see through. And we are at the other end of this journey, but a long way to go before I would call ourselves a success. And certainly, we are excited about where we are and looking forward to commercializing this product and making it accessible to as many surgeons as possible and to patients as many patients as possible.
Excellent, Sujit. It's exciting times. We're thrilled to be in partnership with you and very optimistic about what's next from both a Guider surgical perspective as well as from a greater market perspective. So thank you so much for joining me on Tech Talks this morning.
Thank you so much, Holly, for having me.
Absolutely. And to our audience, thanks for listening. Until next time, be well.